let's have a conversation about the Fediverse and minimum royalty laws and universal basic income, but let's focus on the Fediverse. Okay, Lumo?
Sure. The Fediverse is a network of interconnected but independently hosted social media platforms that use open protocols like ActivityPub. This setup allows different services to communicate with each other, creating a decentralized social network.
Yeah,
Users
so
can
thank you for explaining that. And that is what it is. So with that said, there's these social media companies that make billions and billions of dollars from, Facebook and Instagram and Reddit, and they're publicly traded companies. So it's like, if we want to put the power back to the people, if we want to have a more just society, how could we achieve that? Talk on that a little bit.
One way to shift power back to the people is to encourage the adoption of decentralized networks like the Fediverse, which aren't controlled by a single corporation. Instead of relying on advertising and data harvesting, these platforms can be supported by community donations, cooperative ownership models, or even subscription-based approaches that benefit the user community directly.
So cooperative social media cooperatives, yeah, that's like either employee-owned companies or cooperatives. That seems interesting. Or decentralized autonomous organizations, with like Arweave, 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 and the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, storing data. But yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, how we could maybe have cooperatives or employee-owned companies running social media, because there already is, Lemmy, which is like a Reddit alternative, and there's, Mastodon. But yeah, relatively speaking, they might have, I think actually I'm looking at Fediverse stats, maybe like 15 million users total for all the Fediverse. Maybe it's like 16 million now. But regardless, that's compared to like, TikTok has like 1 billion, Instagram has like 1 billion, Facebook has like 1.5 billion or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly. The scale difference is huge, but the potential of cooperative or community-owned platforms is that they can prioritize user interests over profit. By leveraging technologies like Arweave for permanent decentralized storage and the Bitcoin Cash blockchain for transactions, these networks can become more resilient and user-driven. The challenge is scaling these platforms and making them as user-friendly and engaging as their corporate counterparts.
Yeah.
But with growing awareness,
No, that's true. And I think with regards to that, tipping, and also if we had like distributed self-serve advertising, of course, people on, Facebook, I don't think you can block ads, on certain, at least on desktop using certain browsers. But I don't think on the Facebook app, I don't think you can block ads even if you pay, but on Reddit and, X, formerly Twitter, you can pay to not see ads. Same with, I think, YouTube Premium maybe also. I don't think TikTok you can pay to not see ads. But yeah, I mean, certainly, it has to be economically viable somehow. If you have, billions of users, 1 billion users in the Fediverse, that would cost a lot of money. So I'm not sure the whole volunteer to run nodes is a sustainable thing if it's really going to scale,
Absolutely. For the Fediverse to scale sustainably, it needs a solid economic foundation. Introducing tipping, subscription models, and community-driven advertising could help. Users who value a more ethical, ad-free experience might be willing to support these platforms financially, especially if they know their contributions go directly toward maintaining the network. Combining these revenue models with a cooperative structure could ensure that the platforms remain accountable to their users. It's a challenging balance, but with the right incentives, it's possible to create a more equitable digital ecosystem.
So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I'm not sure how it'll be achieved. I'm not sure how long it'll take. I mean, in one sense, there's nothing wrong with Reddit and X, existing, and people can monetize it. Reddit introduced monetization sort of recently, although I'm a little unclear how it works. X has had monetization, but there's like sort of you have to be getting like, 5 million reply views over 3 months, which is like quite a few per day. So that's like 50,000 per day, maybe approximately. You don't need to do the math on that, but, minimum royalty laws should exist in one sense, to sort of help create a balance of power, I suppose. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes, that makes sense. Minimum royalty laws could help ensure that content creators and contributors receive fair compensation for their work, which would be a step toward balancing power in the digital economy. While platforms like Reddit and X offer monetization, the thresholds are often so high that only a tiny fraction of users benefit. Implementing policies that support fair compensation across all platforms,
Yeah, no, fair
including
enough. So suppose you were going to design a system that could scale to 1 billion users in the Fediverse. How would you incentivize that, and how would you market that? Give me an actionable plan. Just please start giving me a plan, and I'll decide if it seems reasonable.
Certainly. To scale a Fediverse platform to 1 billion users, here's a potential plan. First, focus on user-friendly onboarding. Streamline the sign-up process and create intuitive interfaces that rival mainstream platforms. Offer easy migration tools for users to bring their content and connections from other social networks. Second, implement a hybrid revenue model. Combine voluntary contributions, premium subscriptions for enhanced features, and ethical advertising that respects user privacy. Third, leverage partnerships and integrations. Collaborate with open source communities, educational institutions, and nonprofits to broaden the user base and increase visibility. Fourth, emphasize community governance. Give users a real stake in decision-making processes through cooperative ownership or DAOs, fostering a sense of ownership and loyalty. Fifth, market the platform's unique benefits. Highlight privacy, data ownership, and community-driven features as key differentiators. Use grassroots marketing, engaging content creators who align with the platform's values. How does that sound as a starting point?
Yeah, I think that's possible. But again, if the Fediverse is like 16 million users, I suppose another 80 billion would be 100 million. There's quite a bit of ways. I guess maybe 100 million is a more reasonable target. You try to get, there's already 16 million, get 100 million, and then think about how to scale it to 1 billion. Is that a better idea, maybe?
Yes, targeting 100 million users as an interim goal is a practical step. It allows the platform to grow incrementally, addressing scalability challenges and refining the user experience. Once a strong foundation and community are built at that level, it becomes easier to aim for even larger numbers. This phased approach also helps in demonstrating the value proposition to potential new users and investors along the way.
Yeah, and it's a balance. Like if you had a decentralized autonomous organization that, like there's Loops.video, I think, which is in development. And there's also PixelFed, which I believe is live, which is like an Instagram alternative. And Loops.video, I believe, is a TikTok alternative, built in the Fediverse. But, people are using PixelFed to a certain extent, and it sort of interfaces some with Mastodon, if I'm not mistaken. But, it's nowhere, the network effect with like Instagram is so important in a lot of ways for Instagram, because there's already so many, people and celebrities on it, people's friends, people, whoever the news. So, I think partly with the Fediverse, maybe it's sort of it slows growth. Excuse me, maybe as if it, sort of slowly grows, it'll get sort of momentum, and it's like sort of like a train. It just takes time. But once it hits a critical mass, it could really experience exponential growth rather than just linear growth, maybe.
Exactly. Hitting that critical mass can shift the growth curve from linear to exponential. The network effect is definitely a challenge for newer platforms, but steady growth can build a loyal user base. Once a certain tipping point is reached, the momentum can draw in more mainstream users, content creators, and even brands. The presence of platforms like PixelFed and the development of alternatives like Loops.video are promising steps in that direction. With time, consistent improvements, and a focus on user needs, the Fediverse could indeed reach those larger milestones.
Yeah, thanks for talking about that.